If you sit by the river long enough, so the saying goes, eventually all your enemies will go floating by. Oh yeah, we see that on this channel all the time. Not enemies of me or enemies of you necessarily. No, I'm talking about people who are way worse than that. I'm talking about people who are enemies of truth and enemies of reality. I'm going to give a good example of that in a minute. Hi, this is Colin Flaherty. I'm the author of Don't Make the Black Kids Angry, as well as the host of this little podcast we do here every once in a while. I try to do one every day, or at least on Monday through Friday. Here we talk about black violence, black criminality, black dysfunction, wildly out of proportion. And all the reporters, all the public officials, and all the other enablers who are in denial, deceit, and delusion about it. And we do it without racism, without rancor, without apologies. So let's go back to a story. It was one of these stories that was like all consuming for what? A couple of days, then it just disappeared and we haven't heard from it since. Do you guys remember a story involving, it was in St. Louis, and the headline out of the New York Times says, "White woman who blocked black neighbor from building is fired." So the story is this middle-aged white chick was walking her dog, comes back into her apartment/condo. You know, and you need a key to get in, right? Open the door. She comes in. Somebody comes in behind her. She asked the person to use their own key. This person, this fella, said no. So she kind of confronted him about it. She made a thing about it. The fella just brushed right by her, went into her apartment. She called the cops. Cops showed up a half hour later and everything was straightened out. No, that wasn't really straightened out. That was just the beginning. It became a thing. A video of this thing became a thing. Lots and lots of black people around the country were condemning this woman who tried to stop this fella from entering the apartment building without a key. Because they said white people are always calling the cops on black people for no reason whatsoever. White people got to stop doing that. Because this is my line. Because black criminality is the new black entitlement. So this was a national story, national networks. It was a talking point. Don't call the cops. It was op-eds. Became kind of a movement. Don't call. Black people telling white people, don't call the cops. Just let us do what we do. Don't worry about us. So if you see us in the park, having a picnic, and a place that says we're not supposed to be barbecuing, and we're barbecuing, don't worry about it. Just remember what Colin says, crime is the new black entitlement. Or if you see us selling something on the sidewalk and we're not allowed, the law says you're not allowed to do that, don't worry about that either, because crime is the new black entitlement. But I remember when this story came out, and I mean, we've done videos around here for a long time where people follow people into their apartment buildings. It's kind of a thing in New York, especially in Brooklyn and the Bronx. Some old person, some woman, somebody just walks into their apartment, walks into their building. You know, they usually have some bags with them, right? So they open the door, they kick it open. The door's sitting open. And then when they go through, bing, bam, boom, a fella, always a fella. He's coming in behind them. They either attack them there, they get on the elevator, attack them there, they ride the elevator with them till they get to their home, they attack them there, attack them, beat them, rob them, threaten them, rape them, sometimes even kill them. All because the person didn't turn around and make sure the door was locked. Why don't we run a few of those stories, and pay attention to the last story, because that's where the reporter's going to kind of sum it all up for us and tell us what you should and should not do. Okay, let's flash forward to last night. In the last few days in South Philadelphia, a gentrified part of Philadelphia. On one block, you got a bunch of fellas living the thug life. On the next block over, you got a bunch of young Asian and white professionals, going to their $120,000 a year law clerking job downtown Philly. And even next to them, you've got some old Italian families. So that's the mix in this neighborhood. So over the last, really since December, they've had 9 rapes in this neighborhood. And on one of the latest ones, I actually got the guy on video. He saw a white woman at her door late at night. She's got something in her arms. She's opening her apartment building. He gives her the bum's rush, gets into her apartment, and he rapes her. One of 9.
Yeah, Walter, that sexual assault happened Thursday night here on the 400 block of Mifflin Street. A 33-year-old woman says she was walking along while she was approached by a man on a bike. He apparently sexually assaulted her and then robbed her of $50. This happened just minutes after another attack in another part of South Philadelphia. That was an attempted attack. Now, police believe that this man is the same man wanted for a rape 6 hours after the incident here on Mifflin. That incident happened on the 1900 block of Bancroft Street. Police say the man, surveillance video caught an image of him. Police say he pushed a woman inside a restaurant that she was opening Friday morning at 5:30 a.m. Police believe this man is wanted for a string of attacks dating back to December. 9 attacks and attempts in all. In most of the incidents, he is riding a bike. Now, in this most recent incident, he was bearded and stood about 5'6" to 5'8". In fact, in one case, he broke into a woman's home and forced his way into her bed. In other cases, he held the women at knife point, and in some, he robbed them. Again, this most recent incident, or the one we've just learned about, happened Thursday night around 11:30 here on the 400 block of Mifflin Street. 6 hours later, police say the same man raped a woman on the 1900 block of Bancroft Street.
And so the story doesn't pick up this part, but the local paper does. And even the paper doesn't give it the importance, attach the importance to it that it should. Quote, after 12:15 a.m., the victim entered the building where she lives when an unidentified man opened the door after her, sexually assaulted her, and stole her purse. The suspect was generally described as a medium complexion black male, 5'8", with medium build, goatee, appeared to be about 30 years old. There's a video of him riding around in the neighborhood. They actually also have a video of him going up to somebody's porch. So this thing was like a huge deal just a few months ago. October, November, December, January, February. That's 4 months ago. The whole country was in a panic about white people that are shutting the door on black people and how we can't do that anymore. Because crime is the new black entitlement, and walking into apartment buildings without your key, that's also a new black entitlement. But it's weird to me during that whole thing. I mean, there's dozens and dozens of these videos out there, recent ones, where people are getting hurt in their apartment buildings by people sneaking in through an open door they left open. So an enormous number of people have personal experience with this whole issue, and either they were silent or they were ignored during this October 2-week period where everybody in the country was all of a sudden, we became an instant expert on letting people or not letting people into apartments. So now it happens again last night, and now it's all forgotten. Well, I didn't forget it. I didn't forget how all those reporters were looking into the camera and saying only white racists would shut the door on that poor black person who doesn't have a key. And every single reporter who stood in front of a camera or in front of a word processor or in front of a microphone and explained to the world that that woman is the worst woman in the world for picking on that black person back in St. Louis in that apartment building in October for no damn reason whatsoever, every single person who did that is complicit in these rapes happening in Philadelphia right now. People that live in these apartment buildings in high crime areas, Brooklyn, the Bronx, they all know that. They all know you can't go, when you go into your building, you better shut it behind you.
Fighting back, 2 women were able to fend off 2 intruders with pepper spray with their 4-year-old daughter not far away from them in their Harlem apartment. This happened on West 131st Street near Frederick Douglass Boulevard. The family talked only to News 4's Wale Aliou. Wale, how are they doing tonight?
Well, David, they are absolutely terrified because it's been a month and still no arrest. Plus, they say what makes it even scarier, only 2 people knocked on their door. And it wasn't until I showed them surveillance video from this lobby that they realized that it was actually 4 people who came inside the building.
It could have been worse for us. And we have an autistic daughter. That's what was blowing my mind.
Terrified and in tears, this family, who we are keeping anonymous, says they feel helpless knowing the men who tried to force their way inside their apartment are still on the loose.
I walk outside every day, with weapons because I have a daughter, and it's scary already. Like, I never knew there was 4 of them.
They say only 2 of the 4 men knocked on the door the evening of October 14th.
I can't talk about, like calmly and, look, this is bad. I don't know, it shakes.
Yeah, I'm scared. I want to leave her already. I just want to be safe because of my baby.
Inside, the 2 women and their nonverbal 4-year-old daughter. But the question is, why them?
We're a gay couple, or it could have been they found out there was just maybe 3 girls living here. I don't know, but it's scary.
Curious, the couple opened the door and one of the men said he just wanted to talk and then tried to force his way inside.
Who's gonna knock on somebody's door asking them, can they talk?
He even pulled out an air pistol and shot one of them in the arm.
My elbow, so I didn't really feel nothing at the time.
Her wife pepper sprayed the suspects while she pushed the door shut.
They didn't make it past nowhere else because spray really came in handy.
The 4 men calmly took the elevator down and walked back out to West 131st Street. A simple act this couple says they are now scared to do.
Everything happened so fast. We didn't want to go outside for nothing, and we don't even go outside.
Well, Charlene, friends tell me the victim is a quiet man who keeps to himself, and so that's one reason why this is so much more disturbing. Take a look at that video again. There you see the 63-year-old victim walking into his building on the Grand Concourse. He's holding a white bag and seems totally aware his attacker is right behind him. Then, from out of nowhere, that powerful blow, a punch so hard it knocked the victim to the ground and he blacked out. Police say that's when the suspect went through the victim's pockets and took $40 in cash. He starts to leave and then doubles back and walks towards the victim, who at that point was unconscious. As the suspect is leaving the building, you see him carrying the victim's white bag. Now, folks living on the first floor tell me they did witness part of this attack, but they do not want to get involved. The victim's neighbor says this is a bad neighborhood where you always have to watch your back.
I saw the video. I saw the guy. Probably I saw him 1 or 2. But I cannot say he live around here, but I saw the guy. I seen him like a few times. Hanging around, we got a liquor store here. That's the problem. They go to the liquor store, and when they see people like that, they follow the people.
A man suspected of following a woman into an elevator and sexually assaulting her. Police released this surveillance video of the man wanted for the attack yesterday inside a building in Steigtown. Eyewitness News reporter Derek Waller has the story.
Well, that sexual assault happened in an elevator in a building here in Steigtown. This is off of Avenue C, and it happened at a time you would not expect, 8 o'clock in the morning. So police, they put out some surveillance video from inside that lobby showing the man they're trying to find. That is him walking into an apartment building here. You actually need a car to gain access to the lobby, but they say he piggybacked on a resident, walked in after someone else unlocked the door. The man, believed to be in his early 30s, followed a 42-year-old woman into the elevator, they say, where he groped and kissed her. She tried to get away. She says he then tried to pull her into the stairwell, where he got on top of her and choked her. When she screamed, she says he ran off. The victim was taken to Bellevue with scratches to her neck. Besides some signage in the lobby, though, a neighbor who lives in the same building says he hasn't heard much about it. Of course, it is alarming.
But you got to watch out who you let in, You never know who's behind you, so I always try to explain that to people. And I always watch my surroundings as well.
The complex does have a lot of security, but that has not stopped a couple of other similar incidents from happening in the last couple of years. Of course, residents are reminded that you should never hold the door open for someone you don't know. I can tell you that Crime Stoppers is offering a $2,500 reward.
And now the only thing the reporters have to say is, oh, I don't, when these women are being raped because they're getting bum rushed in their apartment buildings, is, well, Colin, that was October. This is February. That was a long time ago. And besides, Colin, crime is the new black entitlement. Haven't you heard that yet? Strange, isn't it? Why don't we go out to Iowa? I like Iowa because, have you ever been to Iowa? I've been there a couple times, mostly just driving through. I've driven through north-south a few times. I've driven through east-west a few times. Spent a little time in Des Moines and Ames, just like no more than a day in each place. Even when you meet people from Iowa, they're pretty aware that their state is not the center of the universe when it comes to, the high life, the exciting lifestyle, all sorts of cool, fun things to do. I mean, there's some nice people in Iowa, but let's face it, it's not Manhattan, is it? It's not L.A. But it's a nice place with nice, solid people. That's what I used to think. Because really, when we talk about all this black crime so wildly out of proportion all over the country, one of the things people want to know is, okay, well, I don't really feel like I want to deal with that, Colin. Where should I move to where I can get away from it? I never know the answer, but I always think, I don't know, what's wrong? What about Iowa? There can't be that much going on there. But then we learn that there is stuff going on in Iowa. Why don't we run a couple stories? Why don't we run this story from in today's media in Iowa? A guy knocked on the door. What did he want? Did he want a glass of water? I forget. Did he want a ride? Did he want money for his bus fare for his grandmother's funeral? Whatever he wanted, that woman let him in the house to give it to him. Let's check that out.
Sex offender in a neighboring state is now accused of sexually assaulting an 80-year-old woman in her home.
Waterloo police say 30-year-old Manuel Causey came to the woman's door asking to shovel snow before forcing his way inside. Police reported that Causey also stole jewelry. He was found in the basement of another nearby home.
And that's Iowa. I think of another story we did in Iowa. A father of 6 was walking around Des Moines one night. He finds himself on like a fishing pier or a bridge near a river. Like 20, 30 fellas down there. He may have been a little intoxicated. I think he was. But somehow he got into a disagreement, air quotes, with the fellas. The fellas start beating him, attacking him. They killed him. And any spectator who tried to pull their phone out to dial 911, the other fellas took the phone and threw it into the bridge. Whew, that's Iowa. And if you look around the state, Cedar Rapids, Des Moines, Ames, they're playing the knockout game in Ames. People can't believe that's Iowa. I mean, I can't, every time I think about Iowa, you have to think of the movie Field of Dreams, right? Shoeless Joe Jackson comes out of the cornfield and he talks to Kevin Costner. And he asks, "Is this heaven?" Kevin Costner says, "No, this is Iowa." Maybe that was Iowa when they made that movie. I don't know. But Iowa's a little different today. There's a lot of argy-bargy in Iowa. There's a lot of fellas creating a lot of large-term black mob violence, small-term black mob violence. It happens around the colleges, happens in the downtowns, happens in the housing projects that every single one of these big cities has. Talk to somebody from Iowa, they'll tell you a couple years ago they changed the housing regulations. Somehow Iowa became part of the Chicago thing. And so, Chicago refugees could go to Iowa and get some public housing. It's funny. You draw a map with 300, 400, 500 miles around Chicago, and everybody near there will go, "Oh yeah, we had crime. It's because the people came from Chicago to commit it." Anyway, why don't we hear this? To see how bad it is, why don't we hear about what happened at the Iowa Sweet Corn Festival? The Sweet Corn Festival. I mean, you and I say, hey, we're in Iowa. Hey, anybody want to go to the Sweet Corn Festival? We can get us some corn, maybe a lemonade, and go look at the farm animals. You're not ready for this, I guarantee it. Whoa, looks like we've got some problems out in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, at a corn festival. This is not the first time we've ever heard of violence associated with corn in a large Midwestern state.
Stephen King's Children of the Corn.
Praise God! Praise the Lord!
Stephen King's Children of the Corn, an adult nightmare.
And it all comes from reckless children. Wow. I think we better see what the local media has to say about this.
Cedar Rapids police say fights among dozens of juveniles forced the annual St. Jude's Sweet Corn Festival to shut down early. Cedar Rapids police tell TV9 about 70 juveniles caused disturbances at the festival late last night. Police arrested 6 people during that incident, and they face charges ranging from disorderly conduct to assault on a police officer. The officer assaulted only suffered minor injuries. The Sweet Corn Festival released a statement on its Facebook page overnight saying it was in the best interest of the festival and everyone in attendance to close early. We are so sorry if this ruined your night. We're very thankful to all law enforcement for taking swift action. The festival will go on as scheduled today.
Well, it turns out we don't have to call Ghostbusters after all. Thanks to a news outfit out in Cedar Rapids called the Cedar Rapids Defender, we found out what really happened out there. It was really, long story short, it was really just an episode of black mob violence. Somewhere between 75 and 200 black people rampaging through the corn festival, defying police, starting fights, destroying property, assaulting the fair goers. Oh, I know, yeah. This is at least the 3rd year in a row the Sweet Corn Festival has been disrupted by violence, says the local alternative press there. Here's one account. There's lots of stories here. A police officer attempting to detain a teenage youth was subsequently ambushed by dozens of kids who kicked and stomped, beating him on the ground. The officer who was assaulted, luckily, suffered only minor injuries. They had detained 6 juveniles on charges of disorderly conduct and assault on a peace officer. About 150 teenagers were seen running towards the fighting as police fought back against the mob. The teens had been a disturbance all night, as there were reports of racial-motivated assaults and items being thrown at the police. The word Black Lives Matter came across the Cedar Rapids police scanner. One innocent victim was elbowed, stepped on, and kicked during the stampede. The Cedar Rapids Defender went on to remind us that the gang violence at Sweet Corn Festival mirrors what we saw happen at Hog Wild Days, before escalating violence got the event shut down permanently. They shut down Hog Wild Days too in Cedar Rapids. Wow. You know, lots of folks from Cedar Rapids were very unhappy with this. They're trying to figure out what happened to their town. You know, the one they grew up in. Kind of bucolic, safe, everybody was friendly. They took to Facebook to talk about it. Donna Hansen said she and her family went to the festival, the Sweet Corn Festival on Friday. She was shocked at how uncontrolled the teenagers were. At one point, our 10-year-old said she wanted to leave. She kept pointing out how poorly they were dressed. Overall, it was a good short trip to a festival of fun that I have attended for over 30 years. I think all the right thoughts are in place. A few ruin it for many. Here's Heather Glacken. My in-laws came from out of state to spend the weekend. We always plan it so they can come to the Sweet Corn Festival. We came later on Saturday and it was a nightmare. There were so many people, kids that were just hanging out, standing around, not caring about their surroundings, not even riding rides or eating. I got elbowed, stepped on, tripped, and even kicked. Groups were bickering at each other the whole time. And don't even start me on the parking. It was a huge waste of time. We were all so disappointed, and everyone kept saying, this isn't the same as it was before. I thought the festival was supposed to attract families, not be a teenager crap fest. It was very unwelcoming, uncomfortable place to be. Here's Carol Kensit on Facebook. She said, my daughter's stroller, with her in it, got knocked over by some kids running and pushing each other Friday night. Luckily, I caught it before it went completely over and she was okay. I've never seen it like that before. Here's Julia Jordan. This has been unsafe for a long time. Our daughter got jumped there 6 years ago by a teenager she did not know. The doctor that checked her out said the boys were jumped there the year before. and forced to give up their wallets. I complained about the security. It needed to be better. And, we'll never go back. It's time to do away with this unsafe environment. You guys ever met anybody from Iowa? I've been to Iowa. I like Iowa. I've met a lot of people from Iowa. Guess what? They're all very nice people.
Hey! Is this heaven? No. It's Iowa.
Now, just because someone is nice, it doesn't mean they're particularly smart. At least about certain things they need to be smart about. So let's take a look at some of the solutions that the crowd from the Sweet Corn Festival were proposing. Here's Benjamin Danielson. Having the priest here's what he says. Having the priest in his collar and clerical garb would be a nice touch. It's good to see the priest visible, especially another authority figure. Then Byron Flint chimes in. Perhaps a few nuns around as well. Benjamin Danielson said, yeah, I'm not saying it's going to solve everything, but it would be a nice touch. Andrea Lamont, another Sweet Corn Festival grower, has a good idea and a terrible observation. The good idea is, let's just let people in over 18. Oops, I think I'm giving her too much credit. I thought she was the one of the people who said, let's start charging admission. There's no admission to this festival. Charging admission will solve 80% of the problems at 80% of the places. Anyway, but here's where Andrea goes off the track. From what I see on a daily basis, it doesn't matter their race! Exclamation point. Congratulations, Andrea. You have now received an honorary membership in the world's largest coincidence society. So we have 100 to 200 black people rampaging through your neighborhood, through your festival, attacking your friends, attacking your family's friends. And all you can do is look at it and say it's a big coincidence that everybody there was black. Oh yeah, and it was happened the year before, the year before that, happened the year before that. And it happened at the Hog Wild Festival. Yeah, come to think of it, they were black too. I guess that's just a coincidence. Andrea, do you think this is a coincidence? Same night, same kind of deal? In a suburb of Washington, D.C., they had a big festival called the Montgomery County Agricultural Festival. A large group of black people fighting, rampaging, destroying property, knifing each other. They sent they sent Catherine Arcement out to cover it. She did a serviceable job of ignoring the central organizing feature of everybody who was involved in the violence. She basically ignored the whole thing. She has previously contributed to the London Review of Books. Okay, so so I can see the editors at the Post now. They're going, oh, damn it. We got a race riot out at Montgomery, at the Montgomery County Fair. Whole bunch of black people are out there rampaging around. Who can we send out there that will totally not know what's going on? Because unfortunately, when you live in DC for a couple years, a couple days, couple weeks, you kind of figure out in a big hurry how the violence in this town, in this region breaks down and what the patterns are and how they're overwhelmingly out of proportion. And somebody else will say, hey, what about Arcement? She just got done doing something for the London Review of Books. Nobody ever reads that. Sounds great, but nobody ever reads it. Let's get her. Then when somebody messes with us, we can say, hey, we sent our best reporter from the London Review of Books. But just like in Cedar Rapids, there was one little flaw in the plan, Arcement. When your readers started posting things on a Facebook page to tell us what really happened. How large groups of black people were, stomping around, storming around, hassling police, ignoring their directions, destroying property, Not too much different than the stuff that happened in Iowa. Yes, Iowa. Even crazier than that is what happened at the Iowa State Fair a few years before that. Does anybody remember Beat Whitey Night at the Iowa State Fair? Behold.
The state fair ended on a sour note last night after yet another outbreak of violence. And today, police fear that the string of assaults may be race-related. ABC 5's James Horsman joins us live with the details. James.
Well, Rachel, 2 officers were injured and 5 people were arrested last night, marking the 3rd time since East Sider night that a large group of young black people were involved in assaults in or around the fairgrounds.
We had reports that these juveniles were attempting to assault white citizens. That's all under investigation at this time. Whether this has racial overtones or not, we are looking into that.
It's a fear that police have in writing. According to one of the police reports from Sunday's assaults, there was a large fight along East 30th Street with, quote, black male and female juveniles assaulting white citizens. As Des Moines police stepped in to try and break up the 40-person deep crowd, officers were met with heavy resistance.
We continue to try to move them along and disperse, and we were getting a lot of resistance from the crowd.
At that point, 2 officers were hit in the head from behind while trying to make arrests, forcing one of them to use a stun gun to get control of the situation. Chemical sprays were also used on the crowd to get things under control.
There were several groups of juveniles together. What I was told from some officers that it was like a swarm of bees.
This was the 3rd time large groups of young black people were seen assaulting people in and around the fair. The first being at the end of the fair's East Sider night, and the second was on Friday. Police say that on Friday, a white man was severely assaulted by a group of black males and females, eventually fracturing his skull, an attack the police think may have been race-related.
In the police report, it states that a group of black males and females were out at the fair yelling out that it's Beat Whitey Night.
And with yet another incident happening on Sunday under similar circumstances on the last day of the fair, it's hard for police not to think that all of these incidents are related.
These assaults which occurred from last Friday night to last night, we do believe they are related somehow.
And as I mentioned, 5 people were arrested after last night's assaults, and both of the injured officers walked away with bruises but weren't seriously injured.
One of the people you hear in that video, the audio clip of that news story, her name is Lori Loverato. So she was out there telling the people, yeah, we had a lot of black people running around this fair, not just last night, for the last 3 nights. In the fair, out of the fair, rampaging around, beating up white people, including one of the local sports heroes, high school basketball player. They were targeting white people. Cop made a police report. Yeah, everybody was running around targeting white people, shouting, Beat Whitey Night. Day after that, the mayor went crazy. The chief of police went crazy. They're trying to walk back all this stuff that happened on video with witnesses in front of cops. They fired Lori Loverato. They fired the spokesman because a reporter asked her a question, and even as much as she tried to dance around it, she couldn't get around the essential organizing feature of the people creating this violence at the Iowa State Fair. Yeah, it was black people targeting white people in Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa. It's amazing how many editorials there were in the major daily newspaper in Des Moines over the next year or so referring to that. And every time they refer to it, it was always the same. Either A, never happened, or B, it happened for a good reason because, man, there's a lot of white racism in this country. And I mean, why wouldn't we expect black people to go around beating the crap out of white people? I mean, there's so many black people in prison. Why wouldn't we expect the people who aren't in prison to be pissed that there's so many black people in prison for no reason whatsoever? That's how they talk at that paper. That's Iowa. So I don't have a good answer for anybody who wants to know where you can take your family and just settle down and lead a nice, idyllic life with a nice white picket fence and nice neighbors, where you don't have to walk your kid to the corner store to buy a gallon of milk, where you don't have to rent your neighbor's dog to go to the park to get some exercise. Maybe Iowa still is that. I don't know. But Iowa, whatever Iowa is today, it's a lot different than it was 10, 15 years ago. And that means, and nothing, that trajectory has not changed. So 10, 15 years ago, it might even be unrecognizable from where it is today. All right, let's take a little break for a commercial message from good old Colin. Let me see. Why don't we talk about, you know what? I like the coffee cups. Does anybody like those coffee cups? I like them. They got cool sayings on them. And what's one say? It says denial, deceit, delusion. The other one says definition of racism, any conservative winning an argument with a liberal. There's lots of cool cups over there. Guaranteed to make your coffee taste 92.6% better. So all you got to do is go to colinflaherty.com. You'll see a little tab that says merch. Click on that, and all of a sudden you're going to be in a place with all sorts of stuff. It says white girl bleed a lot, don't make the black kids angry, denial, deceit, delusion, all sorts of cool things like that on cups and on t-shirts. So head on over there and grab one of those. Great way to support the channel. It's a great way to have a cool coffee cup in your kitchen cabinet when you listen to good old Colin on this podcast. And if you get so just a really brief reminder for this podcast, what you can do if you want to, really be a part. Some people, when they listen to these podcasts, even with the failings of good old Colin, speaking them and mumbling half the time, some people really feel like they want to do something. And so, the question is, what can I do? And there's lots of things you can do. First of all, just share, like, subscribe, comment on these videos, on these podcasts, on my articles. The great algorithm in the sky, no matter who's running it, really wants to know what you are interested in, what people are interested in. That's the best way to do it. You have to show engagement. But these algorithms are so advanced now. I used to check it all the time. Now I hardly check it at all. But I go into Amazon once in a while to see how my book is selling. And the only way you can do that is you check to see what your Amazon rank is. So I went in there the other day to check out my Amazon ranking for Don't Make the Black Kids Angry. And right when I got in there, I saw this book, like this huge advertisement for this book. It's called something like A Good Way to Die. And so these algorithms, I don't know how this algorithm knew good old Colin was in the hospital for about a month last year with this and that. But it's weird how, all of a sudden this book about a good way to die is following me around the internet now. I wasn't one of these people who was my own doctors either. I wasn't doing a lot of research on the internet about, how we do this or how we do that. No, so the algorithms are important, and they're sophisticated, and they pay attention to what you're doing. So if you're over there, no matter if it's Twitter or Facebook, I'm on a 30-day suspension. Twitter, Facebook, Minds.com, or on the YouTube channel that other people put up on YouTube, just share, like, subscribe, comment. And that'll make a big difference. Well, here's something that we could have a little fun with. For Black History Month. Man, I was just watching the local news to see if there's an update on that sexual assault spree in South Philadelphia I was telling you about. And there was, and I took it in. Then the next story started playing. And I guess there are these people now, that's their thing, is to go around to try to convince the NBA team, the NBA, and other sports leagues to start playing the Black national anthem in addition to the United States national anthem. We've played that national anthem here many times. I hardly ever tell you what it is. I'm waiting to see if anybody knows what it is. I'll put it in the background here. But it's weird. Now we have we're going to have two national anthems at some of these games. The message is out. If you're black, you have a black organization, you get a few people behind you, you can roll the NFL easy. I mean, last year they gave $100 million to the players' organizations just to encourage them not to kneel. Then just a few weeks ago, they gave Colin Kaepernick $60 to $80 million because they said he accused them of collusion. So, these guys, they seem like they're ready to bargain. Now somebody else wants them to play the Black National Anthem. Whatever. Well, anyway, so if you're not inspired by the Black National Anthem, but you do want to help with what we do around here, which is expose this enormous level of black violence and criminality, why don't you go over to Amazon and pick up a copy of Don't Make the Black Kids Angry. I know you probably already have one. If you don't, get it. Read it. But here's the thing. Give it to somebody. Give it to a reporter. Just send it to them. Send it to a reporter in your hometown, or send it to one of the national guys you listen to on radio or TV. I don't care if it's MSNBC or CNN either. Get it and send it. This will do two things. One, you might actually educate somebody. And two, wouldn't it be interesting if we kicked up the sales of Don't Make the Black Kids Angry back to #1 in my category, which is, one of my categories is African American Studies. Yeah, my books are in there. It'd be interesting to have Don't Make the Black Kids Angry, the best-selling African-American book during Black History Month. All the fellas and their lovely ladies out there are complaining that Jussie Smollett ruined Black History Month this year. Man, think what you think it's been ruined now? If that book cranks it, jumps back up the sales charts, yeah, that'll ruin it for a whole hell of a lot of people. Okay, and if you've already done that, and if you want to still keep going, and if the spirit moves you after you listen to the Black National Anthem, go over to Colin's, go over to that PayPal account. Colin, let me see, what is it? It's paypal.me/Flaherty457. Drop a few coins in the cup, put a little wind beneath my wings, and we're going to keep going on this. Okay, let's back. We now return you to the regularly scheduled portion of this podcast. One of the things we talked about a lot in Don't Make the Black Kids Angry was witness intimidation. I didn't really know it was a thing until I started writing that book. Then all of a sudden I started hearing from district attorneys in Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Baltimore, New York. They talk about when it especially comes to a murder, witness intimidation plays a role in every murder in a urban, air quotes, now they have me using euphemisms. Every murder in a black neighborhood involves witness intimidation. When the knockout game was a more public thing, the mayor of St. Louis was riding home from a Grateful Dead knockoff band, tribute band concert. He's driving through the neighborhood. He sees 20 kids, 20 of the fellas beating the crap out of this guy. They said they were playing the knockout game. There was a 12-year-old girl who saw that happen. And so the mayor made a big deal about this. He said, "We're going to catch those people. We're going to put them in jail." And so they arrested somebody, and the girl was going to be the girl was going to be the witness. Big trial. Everybody in St. Louis is ready for the big trial to begin. The girl disappeared. The mother picked up and moved her out of town the day before the trial. Facebook exploded. Everybody that was there was going, "Yeah, free my KO gang, knockout gang." They were like ecstatic. This was like the most high profile case in St. Louis that year. And it was all about witness intimidation. And now we've got another case out of, I'm reading from the Washington Post here. Let me see if I can find where this is out of. Denver. This is out of Denver. So, this lovely lady and her son, adult son, they hired, I think, a black person on Craigslist to come fix their car. So they said, "Come on down to our hotel. You can fix it down at our hotel." So they went and picked him up, brought him down to their hotel. When he gets to the hotel, the guy realizes he's like in the middle of Bonnie and Clyde Central here. There's all this drug paraphernalia, robbery paraphernalia, and he figures out that these guys are serious, violent, dangerous criminals. And he's just a mechanic. He doesn't want anything to do with them. So he takes some pictures, sends them to the cops. Cops get on it. They go arrest the people. So at some point in these legal proceedings, you have to send out a list of witnesses, or to the defense gets to see what kind of evidence you have. But even so, inside that, You don't have to tell everybody's name or address or anything like that, especially if if they think there's a chance of intimidation. You can hold some information back. But somehow the judge didn't, in Denver, in like over a year, the default is to check the box saying everybody gets everything. And you have to uncheck that box on a computer. Well, there were like 1,700 cases of the judges not checking the box and all these defense attorneys getting all this information about the witnesses so their clients would have lots of time to go down there and do some really bad business on the witnesses. And what happened here was they paid a visit to this mechanic with a gun. They said, the wife and the mom and the son go to the guy's house, put a gun to his head, said, you better get your mind right, because you're not going to testify against us, right? So they left. He kept his mind on straight. He said, I'm going to keep testifying. They came back and killed him. So now the mom and the son have just been arrested for witness intimidation. And I think the biggest, and I think they were, well, not just witness intimidation, but also murder. This is in Denver. And I think the bigger picture on this is whenever people are talking about the numbers, when you're talking about the numbers behind black crime and you don't mention how much of a part witness intimidation plays in making those numbers as bad as they are, they should be a lot worse, keeping the numbers lower than they actually are, then that person that is telling you about the numbers, they either don't know about the numbers or they're intentionally trying to mislead you. I mean, man, how many podcasts, how many stories and videos have we done on this whole rape thing that we opened the broadcast with? And how black women don't report rape. And if they do decide they're going to report rape, all of a sudden the minister shows up, the deacon shows up, the community activist shows up, the college president show up, the mayor shows up, city councilman shows up. They all remind you that black men are relentless victims of relentless white racism all the time, everywhere. That explains everything. And why are you going to contribute to that by putting him in jail just because he made one mistake? And so, I mean, there's this code of silence that takes these numbers and the numbers is unbelievably bad and just cuts them in half, cuts them by 2/3. I don't even know what a good number is. But I do know that when we look at black crime numbers, black versus white crime is 3 times, 10 times, 1,000 times worse just by the numbers. Those are the official numbers. But when you factor in this attitude about rape, the attitude about witness intimidation and murder, wow, what are the real numbers? That's why I don't like to talk about the numbers that much. Somebody was just sent me an email going, Colin, you got to remind us what the numbers are. Well, the numbers are so terrible. They're so out of whack. If you don't know right now that black crime is wildly out of proportion in this country, if you don't know, or your friend doesn't know, or your mom or dad, sister, brother doesn't know, they don't know that, there's nothing in those numbers that's going to change their mind, because that's like transparently true and transparently obvious, not just from the numbers, but it's from how you live your life. Are you going to the other side of town to go to the opening of the new rib restaurant? Are you going to church with black people? Are you going to funerals and black funeral homes? Are you going to swim? Are you going swimming in black swimming pools? Yes, there are black swimming pools in black neighborhoods. Well, I know the answer to all those questions, and the answer is no. And one of the reasons is, depending if you're aware of it or not, especially if you're not, the reason is you're aware on some level that crime down there is wildly out of proportion. And if you walk down there, you are going to be a victim. You already know that. So people are already in denial about the numbers. And if you think mentioning the numbers more and more often will change that, I don't think that's true. As a matter of fact, numbers are a deflection. Numbers are just a representation of reality. Numbers aren't reality. Reality is a story of one guy going through one neighborhood, gentrified neighborhood in Philadelphia, and raping 9 people in 60 days. That's reality. And the reality is a lot of people don't report that. The reality is, a lot of those people were at their front door and they went into their apartment and a black person came in behind them before they could lock it. And the reality is a lot of people say if you turn around and lock the door when there's a black person on the steps coming in behind you, you're a very bad person, bad enough to get fired from your job and subject to national scorn on the front pages of the New York Times and every other major media in this country. That's reality. And the reality is we're just not going to do anything to make the black kids angry.